This film, number 11, covers largely addressing a stick-built structure without trusses. So all of those members are sized, and some of the various considerations with regard to stick building is covered. Also covered is it's under roof, the entire thing's under roof now, and the rear deck area, just a whole bunch of different things now more or less concerned with the exterior. This was just a final adjustment on this northwest corner of the kitchen. And so I began by sizing these ceiling joists running east-west over the great room, because that's our largest span. And I tried to see if I could get to do 24 inches on center. And none of these products, either from TJI or regular commodity lumber, is going to pass except 2x12s at 24 inches on center. So I wasn't sure about 2x12, so I reverted to 16 inches on center here. So if you want to run everything on 24 inches on center, rafters and ceiling joists, they would have to be 2x12s. They can be just SPF, number 1 or number 2, but they do have to be 2x12s. I took a look and saw if it would make a difference if we ran them north-south, although that introduces other structural kind of headaches. But it made no difference. They still wanted 2x12s to do it north-south as well. So, but I went back to running the ceiling joists with the rafters, parallel to the rafters, at 16 inches on center. So we would have 16 inches on center on ceiling joists and the rafters. And it's SPF, 2x10s SPF, but at 16 inches on center. So those are pretty tall. If we raise that up so we get the whole heel height, the whole 10-inch heel height. And then these are the rafters. Since I didn't even bother tying those at 24, I can. Presumably they're probably going to be 2x10s at 24. But at 16 inches on center, all these various selections possible, 9 1/4. So they're saying that the roof joists over that area will also be 2x10s. Now you can get by with using 2x8s though, and that's what's shown here, which means that roof would lower some like that. So this is what I'm showing is 2x8s, 16 inches on center for the rafters, and 2x10s, 16 inches on center for the ceiling joists over that main area. However, at the end I reverted to 2x10s for a couple reasons. Number one, if it was 2x8s, those needed to be Southern Pine number 1, and I'm not sure how readily available that is. And I want to raise that plane a little bit to help with the adjacent north plane. So these next couple slides, which have some height measurements, rely on that 2x8 rafter, even though eventually that gets changed to a 2x10, reducing those vertical dimensions some. Note, however, if you do use 2x8s for that roof, for those roof rafters, they would have to be Southern Pine number 1. So you would have to make sure that that's actually available locally. Otherwise they're 2x10s, and that's what I'm showing down here, the 2x8 SYP number 1 or the 2x10 SPF at 16 inches on center for these rafters here. But again, I can't remember why, but that has been reverted to 2x10s, and 2x8s aren't shown on the plan at all. And because I knew that some of this motivation to stick build, besides being probably more convenient and easier in trying to get a crane over there and in, I knew that one of the motivations was trying to gain some storage space in that attic. So I wanted to look at a few things with regard to that. And that is about your, now this is if you were to put floor over 16 foot wide, four sheets of plywood and 2 or 3 going east north or north south. But I have it shown 16 foot wide, so if you platform the center of that at 16 foot wide, it gets down to 2'6" here at the edge. One of the problems with that might be, though, is getting this R38, the required R38, in that floor space. So I don't know, I thought you probably just have to lay, you know, some 1-inch thick something, and this is from Owens Corning, and it is 10 1/4 that's what its installation is. So that 1-inch lift would give you space for that insulation to continue under the platform. And then these joists are either suspended from a flush beam, and that's how I would do it, even though, I mean, you would have the opportunity if you wanted to use a drop beam, you could. It only has to be a couple 2x6s, like a drop beam. But up there with a couple hangers on each side for 2 or 3 joists on each side of that chimney, that is how I would do it, particularly since if it's going to be platformed over here to tie these together. So if that's done, that 16-foot wide platform, this is it here in this orange, and this is essentially 2 pieces of plywood this way, 16 feet, and it's 16 feet this way. So that's about 250 square feet of storage up there. And then I designed this north end, what it was going to take, and those can be 2x8s if everything's 16 inches on center, which I assume it will be at this point. Because if you want this at 24, if you want to do everything at 24, so yes, to confirm the ceiling joist at the center, if you want those at 24 inches on center, those are 2x12s SPF. So if the ceiling joists are 24 inches on center and the rafters then are at 24 inches on center, then those would have to be 2x12s. So 2x12s, rafters and ceiling joists in the center at 24 inches on center, SPF. At the north end, you want the ceiling joist 24 inches on center, that'll be 2x10s, SPF. And if you want the rafters 24 inches on center, those will be 2x10s. So this is shown doing it at 16 inches on center. But if you want it to be 24 inches on center, if that's the way to go, then everything over here is 2x12s SPF, and everything over here is 2x10s SPF. Now, the nice thing about using 2x8s, the rafters and ceiling joists here, is we drop that heel down. We're not worried too much about that energy of them calling us out on that, because we drop that heel height down some and give ourselves some clearance between these 2 roof planes from the north elevation. But once I sized these for this reason, to give us a little more space up there, and this is looking, now we're coming this way, this platform is up here, but to get up into this attic, there's only a couple locations. I mean, unless you're going to have it out here in the room, which is back in this hall oriented this way, or in this laundry facility oriented this way. So this is looking through here, and this is that attic access here, and this is the platform. The orange piece is the platform, and notice it's offset because it's up under here, under the main portion. And this assumes that there won't be a wall in this attic, and there should be a wall in that attic because we're going to have to carry some of the siding up here. So I'm not even sure about accessing that from this end. I mean, the studs will be open, but still, you would have to come up through here and then go over in between some 24-inch centered studs here. I would think that's how they would do it, and Roy might have another idea. But so getting up there, I thought, is going to be kind of a headache to access that 250 square feet, at least from the north end in any event. So if that happens, you may as well just plan on the access being from the laundry room, I would think. And you could have a ladder that would stretch out from that and not hit the chimney. I can double check that. But if the access is from the hallway, I go on to describe kind of the headache with regard to that. This is when you come up and get on this platform, on the lower platform, on the north portion, 16 inches up to that platform, and it's about 27 inches, you know, here at the center from the platform up. So it's crawling up there to get that stuff. And maybe it's probably definitely, it's probably better accessed here, particularly now over here. These joists over here on the whole south end, because they have all these intermediate stuff, these can be 2x6s, these ceiling joists here, and the rafters remain the 2x10s, and those are all suspended in tandem, in pairs, at this beam A back here. But you have to decide on whether that attic story. Stick building is one thing, whether or not you want to access that space is another. And then, yeah, this is just 2x2 2x10s, a flush beam here for those to go against. Otherwise, it's just pre-engineered trusses. It'd probably be 2 different sets, plus if you did trusses on this piece back here. So you'll have to make some judgments about what makes sense on that. You know, that whole, everything's stick built up here. I haven't even looked at the crawl space, how we're going to frame that floor yet, because I wanted to see what was going to happen up here and where the weight was going to be. And that's another thing. Generally these trusses are clear span, and I don't know if they would do that here or not, but generally they're clear span, so we don't have to worry about any of these loads coming down into our basement framing and having to make sure that that's beefed up enough to carry that stick framed load compared to the truss framing. But I don't know that for sure. Those truss manufacturers, maybe they do count on having this center bearing point here and maybe something through here. I don't know. And then development on the outside, this was the very end from that, and the only shot from this end, the only camera shot from the north end. But this was where I'd arrived at making various adjustments, some based on what you said, some based on just following things along. This is not exactly what you described, I'm positive. But that was before I even read your messages about the windows and so forth. But this is what I had put together, these various developments, and I had this garage roof wrong, I'm pretty sure. That comes up. All this here is really either, you know, stained wood that's nice wood, or clad aluminum. This can actually just be treated lumber that's left to age and then finally stained at some point. But that's how I'm supporting that roof for now, and I'm not completely positive about it yet, whether I want that to come down some and whether or not that's even acceptable to you. But that was how I managed it going in. And I still am torn on whether try to see if maybe those stairs could go either out this way or out this way, so that you capture more of that porch. In any event, this probably just looks at some different window arrangements. That's the 3 casements all together. That's a triple slider, 10-foot triple slider, which I don't know if those are widely available, but I know some manufacturers make them. And then the 3 double hungs, which you ended up saying this in your text message after this was all put together. And I actually, because we have some lights in these ones down here, I guess, divided lights in those ones, and I actually ended up kind of liking that, but it's not my house. And then I took off your metal roof, and I noticed late that there was no door in all of these, no front door in any of them, till late when I discovered that and then put it back in. And I was pretty much getting to the end, and all these photos are assuming, and I looked this up, and it looks to me like the only reliable way to do this is to remove that steel siding, come over there with your sheeting, your zip system sheeting and flashing and whatnot, and then if you wanted to put casings on these windows as well, you could. But that is the way this is apparently done, and Roy might have another idea or may have some experience with that. But from what I found, you can't just go over this. It's just a flashing nightmare. And then we add this chimney, and this was just, it's pretty diminutive, so I just widened that out some. There's just a couple shots from this end. And the problem, yeah, one of the things with that chimney is I have that pulled forward, so it's straddling that roof, but the chimney below actually isn't. And I think that would be picked up from outside, that misalignment, and you could see, so I shift that chimney forward pretty substantially. And you'll see that on floor plan here in a minute. It gives you a little bit more room inside. Yeah, here this is here, done at the very end. That, you can see that that's not aligned with the chimney. And here's, quickly, you don't even need any kind of thing like that. This thing takes such a small flue, it could actually go on the back side of this roof. It's just a metal cap, roof boot basically. So you don't even need to do any of that up there if you didn't want to. But I think if you did, you almost have to look for some sort of alignment, either pushing the chimney on the roof back or bringing this whole system. And I kind of like bringing this forward. And I shortened the hearth too. I had the hearth at almost 17 inches. So now I've shortened that to 12 inches. And that kind of pushes this laundry room more up into this area of the house. It does give you a lot of space here now if you did this. And it still maintains this pretty wide here, 16.2. But that would be a judgment for you to make on what you want to do with both the chimney and all of that. Looking at this north elevation, since it's shown up here, a couple items. First of all, I think that the ground falls off at least another 8 or 12 inches at the north end. And I've eliminated the stone from that whole north portion, and now that is shown in parged block with whatever kind of texture you would want. And I have to say, and you probably agree, that some of that garage work, at least at the south and east facade, almost has to be done to bring these two pieces together, particularly now that the roof is not going to do that job. Assuming this elevation is beginning to get there, a couple other things. Probably the chimney was shown, the short one was 4 foot, this one's closer to 8 foot. I'd probably maybe shorten that too, although I kind of like it. Maybe that could be shortened to 6 foot wide. The angled brackets are not required structurally at all at the porch. Those are just completely decorative. So if you don't like those, they can go away. And this could just be a straight look here. But if you wanted something more, those can be curved. I'm not suggesting we carve volutes into them, but you could add something there. Another thing that's occurred to me as I've been looking at this or staring at it is, and this is probably critical, so we'll go back and look at those photographic representations just so that you can reimagine those, is those stairs to the porch, maybe those should be shifted and pushed right against the garage wall. A little less accessible, but it seems like it would provide a little bit more porch area without expanding the size of the porch. And then that column that's on the porch that's holding up those brackets, that would move to the south at the corner of the porch, and you wouldn't have the bracket that's going off to the south, just the ones that is going off to the north. You might have one coming on the back side of that column going to the west, but then if you do that, that door is not going to be centered, but I really don't think that's critical because it's set so far back in there. A couple other things with this deck or this front porch, I didn't mention it during the photos, but that porch right now is only set an inch down from your main floor, so that's almost level with your first floor, and then down the 4 risers to the driveway. 2 or 3 other things. All the siding shown so far, I have not altered. The siding is still showing as that hard edge 8-inch board and batten. Recall the 8-inch wasn't available in as many colors and was somewhat more expensive, at least, than the 7-inch. And I remember the 12-inch was twice as expensive as the 7-inch, but the 7-inch is available in a lot more colors, as you know, and once you tell me exactly what those color numbers are, I'll begin to represent some of those textural changes you suggested at this central facade anyway. And there I mean not just colors, but changing that central portion to possibly lap siding. So don't forget to tell me what sorts of exposures, although I'd probably be tempted to show us a couple of them. And I don't know, offhand I just don't know until I do it. I wonder how that siding's, I think that the porch, it's back there. So offhand I think the vertical is probably going to work better, particularly how it wraps around and joins with the garage, presumably. But we shall see. One of the things that occurred to me is maybe the lap siding, the stone is as shown, and maybe the lap siding goes up to the bottom of these windows since they all have the same sill, and that lap siding is run, geez though, but you would have to run it practically the rear of the house. So that's probably not the idea either. One final thing on this elevation is I would just get the 2-foot window. I think anything smaller than that's going to begin to look like an afterthought or just too small and too diminutive with those other larger windows, A. But B, that window is going to be sliding north some because we're going to, unless you think it's a bad idea, we're going to put cabinetry. We're going to pull that toilet forward to the north and put cabinetry above that toilet and probably deep cabinet. We're going to look at that bathroom again now that you're thinking about that whole shower. And I know you were thinking of downsizing that to make the framing easier, but really for that 2-foot window, they could just do that on a fly, cut the studs off and put in plank 2x4 headers, 2 planks across, and that'll be fine. So the framing's just not that big of an issue. This next section coming up is going to be all about reviewing the back and the roofs back there and the covered porch or the covered deck. So I'm just going to be narrating some silent films that I made earlier, just rotating around that back side to get you familiar with it and some of the issues. And hopefully I'll just not ramble too much like I did with this front elevation. First of all, as with everything I've done so far with this, I'm trying to keep costs, at least at a go-in point, I'm trying to keep costs pushed downward. So this covered porch is as large as you could do it with a single beam out there and 2x8 joists. And the width is pretty much dictated by the location of the meter in the bathroom and the other piece there on the right side. But that deck, as shown in these, is 14 feet wide and comes out from the house 14 feet. And you can come out as far as your terrain will allow you, but you'll have to increase these members, increase the cost. But there's no problem to bring that out further if you want it larger. 14 by 14 is what it's going to be shown, and I don't show it larger in these films yet. Also, I'm showing it as open as possible where there's just these columns at the end, and it takes a couple LVLs on the north end to do that with no intervening columns. Now, I did want to cover this. This porch is shown very simple. You'll see it from up from under at one of these points. It's shown simple, particularly in case somebody went to do trusses. But a person could actually, even if they were going to do trusses, they could do scissor trusses and you'd have a higher ceiling. I have you stepping down onto that porch 7 inches from the dining room and then down the 3 or 4 that it takes to get to grade. And that is still it's still 8'9" from the surface of the deck to the bottom of the required beam. And all of this work is just shown, well, this is probably manufacturer parts, these railings and little newel posts, but these are just sleeves, and I'm showing them just like 4 inches, where that's just 4x4 construction that's clad with vinyl or aluminum. But like I said, it's 8'10" almost from the surface of the deck to the bottom of that beam. So if you want to bring that deck up, because it's going to be hard for small dogs to get up and in that dog door, because it's got to be at least 3 or 4 inches from the bottom of the door up into the panel. So you could raise that up, and it'd probably be a better connection at the house anyway, because then it's straight into the band joist. Bring it up to 7 inches if you want, particularly since it's all covered, so you don't have water issues to worry about. And then you'd have just one more stair at either end down to those added concrete landing places. And I'm assuming you'd want that can come right down to grass if you want, but I'm assuming that could tend to get to be a mud hole. So I'm showing at least some concrete pads at the bottom of those stairs. With regard to making that porch more grand, that rear porch more grand, if that roof is stick framed, those rafters actually only have to be 2x12s, but I'm showing it's 2x6s. But if a person wanted to just stick frame that thing and have a ridge beam coming over, then I would it's a little more expensive, because I wouldn't want a column right in the middle of that west facade. So that would be 4 columns across there with some sort of lighter beam to carry that ridge beam down, and then that's open all the way except for the verticals holding up the west end of the ridge beam. With the cathedral ceiling, it's probably going to approach 11 feet anyway high. But again, that's a more expensive project, and my dentist once introduced me to some client there as, this is Mark, the guy that designs things that no one can afford to build. So I'm trying to make this affordable by keeping it simple and manageable. All those soffits are just aluminum clad 2x, and the gutters are 5-inch, not 6-inch, 2x3 downspouts, which that is something to think about, whether or not you want those, at least these main ones, in 6-inch, although these two are joined, so that would be 6-inch everywhere. With regard to this roof, I mean, the easiest thing would have been to bring this deck all the way out to the southwest corner of that dining room and just have one big gable capture that whole space. As it is, I like how it looks, but there's only so much can be done to roof that over and keep things energy efficient and so forth. And the way I did it is just add another roof sloped up to meet that 412 pitch, and I was able to get that. If I brought its ridge up to the top of the covered porch ridge, I was able to get that pitch up to 2.5 12, which you have to put ice and water shield on it, but otherwise the shingles perform fine on that slope. The heel height is another issue. That was all the way down to about 6-inch heel height, so I would recommend, just if the insulator can just do some spray foam at these kind of problematic areas, perhaps at the west or at the eaves on this north portion and at that little portion, it'd probably be a good idea. But I'll show you a little section view of that here in a second. And I kind of wanted to bring that roof down at the front end a little bit and separate it from the porch roof and accomplish a little bit steeper pitch here, but it would have required lowering a portion of that dining room ceiling or all of the dining room ceiling, and there's no decent division point if you look at it in plan view to do that, you know, lower the dining room ceiling by 6 or 8 or 10 inches or whatever with soffitting. There's no real way to do that. So I settled on this, and I don't think there's even going to be too many people that are actually able to see this from the right angles to pick up that pitch difference. And maybe it even helps to marry these 3 different ones. I don't know. But this is where it is right now. And I think that is about it. I'll page you back through those front porch in case you want to see about that, moving those stairs against the garage. But otherwise, that's it for now on this rear facade. You can tell me what to do with all of those windows. I would not eliminate that. What I would do in that bathroom is at least put in glass block with a little vent. And the light is just so nice, and the cost of that glass block window is nothingness compared to that. I think you left before I renovated my bathroom, but I'll send you a photograph of it. And here you can see we're using those 2x8 ceiling joists, and being able to drop that down helped us at the division between these 2 roofs. On second thought, I don't think that's probably going to be a great idea, moving those stairs. This is only a couple feet here. I don't think you're going to pick up that much. But I will mention, since I investigated it back then for a minute when I looked at that, this porch can come, you know, either now or at any point, this porch can come out here another 4.5 feet, and it would still be 7 feet to the bottom of this member here. So if you wanted that porch to come out, you could. But yeah, I don't think shifting the stairs that way is any kind of a good answer, so we'll just leave that alone. But there's elevations to show you as well, the last 2 or 3 elevations. We've been through this one too much. Now that I'm here, and I mentioned it in the film before, I almost am inclined to wonder about having the portion of that. I'm almost wondering if it would be alright to have this portion slope down so that we end up separating those 2 and dropping this down further. And I don't know, like if we tried to match it with the garage even, It wouldn't even probably require that much inside. Yeah, see, that gets us below this one here. So think about that, whether or not you could live with that slope in there for this look out here. And that can always be done on the fly, but you can see now this one is matching up with this one here. I have this window already down to 30, but I think it's almost going to have to go to 28 anyway, just for all the clearances and to just have some structure still left through here. Yeah, I think that's better. You have to let me know if you're going to supply any shutters for this. Yeah, that's it on that facade. This is the rear one. This is that sliding window I didn't show you because I didn't get your message till late. If you want to put like narrow double hungs here and one fixed unit in the middle, and I know there's been some kitchen cabinet changes in one of those texts, but I would consider making those flanking cabinets a little less wide so that you can get another 10 or 12 inches and then do that. Still as all one unit, I mean a double hung, fixed unit, double hung. But I will show that to you the next time around. And whatever you want to do with these, I think you've already told me this is going to be just a single egress double hung here, something else over here. And then the last facade is from this direction here. And you can really see that this is, even if this has to go up to where these are 2x10s, that'll still be okay. That'll still give us enough clearance in here. We have good clearance down through here. This window is probably shown as a 32 now, but I think he wants to change some things on these windows. But let me know so that we can just finalize that out on the plans, at least for estimation and so forth. Oh, lastly, remind me which way this door is going to be. If it's not going to have a storm door, it can just swing in, right? But let me know exactly how you want that to swing, and as I look at it from outside, which way it swings and which side the hinges are on. And that's it for this review number 11. And the next one is just going to be firming up stuff that's making your adjustments that you make based on this film, and firming up that cellar or that crawl space plan. And I don't know if I have this this terrain shown the right way, but probably he's going to have to step this foundation at some point down along that west or along that north end and then back up again. But he can just do that as he goes, but he'll just have to know that there will be some, which he'll know as soon as he looks at the site. But that's it for that whole thing. I will talk to you soon. Let me know any of your thoughts. Thanks.